Took a swing at a wrecking ball and I prayed for my downfall, and I found a way to reconcile, 'cause in my heart it's not worthwhile. It's a bloody battlefield where some go down, others heal. In the end it's all the same. All you can do is play the game. Oh, do we say goodbye?
Hi guys, and welcome back to Movies That Matter with the Viking. And today, did you ever wonder what it would be like if Zack Snyder was to direct a Marvel film? To direct a Marvel character? Maybe even in the MCU? Pretty interesting, wouldn't it be? Well, Screen Rant did an article last night, and they said that Zack Snyder has always wanted to direct a Wolverine film. Now, for me personally, I am in love with Wolverine, the character, and look, Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. He's the reason I love the character so much. Days of Future Past, brilliant. X-Men 1, X-Men 2. Logan is a masterpiece for me. The best Marvel film, period. And yes, that includes the MCU. I get a lot of hate for that, but it's just a fact. No, it's just my opinion. That's what I think. But Zack said he'd always been interested in doing a Wolverine film. And he said it would be cool. An R-rated superhero movie. That's just cool. I don't care what it is. Wolverine would be cool if it was rated R. So he's always wanted to go in that direction of taking comic book movies to the limit and going somewhere that some of them are afraid to go to and haven't done. See, like the MCU works, it's all PG-13 type films. DC does kind of the same, but its tones do be a lot darker, like the Dark Knight series and the Burton Batman films. And then of course with Zack with Man of Steel, they have real tone aspects in them, and it feels more like a real world. Everything is not a joke and a skit, which I like about DC. That's always what's worked for them, in my opinion. When they've gone and done things like Justice League or Batman Forever and things like that, that's when they failed to connect with audiences in a way. But Zack always wanted to do an R-rated superhero film, and we got to see that in the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman. It wasn't a hard R. There was some horror elements in it, like curse words and some blood and things like that. But he said he'd really like to push the limits. But he mentioned Wolverine there, and then Fox were kind of looking at him around the time of 2009, 2008, when they were getting ready to do Wolverine Origins, which we all know is not the best of films. But from what I've heard, Gavin Hood the director had a very tough time on that project. A lot of interference from the studio, from producers and things like that. It wasn't a good film to be involved with or to shoot, so that ultimately wasn't his vision. And Gavin Hood is a very talented director, I think, a very good director. I like other films that he has done, but it just shows you what happens behind the scenes 10 years ago, and then it happens again in the same aspect with Zack and guys like David Ayer. But he said this as well. I read the script. This is about X-Men Wolverine Origins. It's cool, but there's no way. They asked me about it, but I just said, I don't know. That would be a thing that, if I didn't have Watchmen, I would be interested in Wolverine. So around that time, Zack was in talks. He was just after coming off 300, a huge success with a very, very small budget compared to other big spectacular films that were coming out. And if you watch 300, it's like a film that cost 100 million plus. It really, really did. And that's the thing about Zack. He can make films with a tight budget. Sucker Punch is the exact same. But he was coming off 300, like a success. And he was in talks with Warner Brothers. Of course, wanted to work with him again because he brought money. Watchmen for me is a very unique film, and I really like it. It took me a few times to get into the characters and get into the vision that Zack was trying to tell. But I can watch that film now, and it feels like it's new and it's fresh. I can watch it whenever I want. I never get tired. I never get tired of Zack Snyder films in general. And that's not just Zack. That's got to do with Tarantino. That's got to do with Scorsese. Directors like that I really, really admire and like the way that they tell stories. But he read the script, and from what I can get from the quote is maybe he didn't connect with that script so much. I'm sure he'd love to come onto a Wolverine project and do his own spin on it and do something different, like Man of Steel. So it all worked out in the end. He went on and did Watchmen. A film that's kind of still talked about today. It didn't do well at the box office. Now, Wolverine Origins did well at the box office, but it's a bad film, and it didn't do too well critically, and it's still talked about today in a bad tone. But Watchmen, which did fail at the box office in terms of making profit back, but it's still talked about today in a very different aspect and different tone, because it's very unique the way that film is shot, going from the comic book from Alan Moore then to what Zack did. I find it very interesting. And then of course we got the TV show this January gone by, which was absolutely a masterpiece of television. But it all worked out in the end. 10 years later, or 2017, Logan came, the R-rated brilliant Marvel film directed by James Mangold and then with Hugh Jackman. But it just just shows you what Zack was thinking of doing with the character of Wolverine 10 years prior before it was done. He seen a way that Wolverine could be told in a different aspect, and especially R-rated, which the Wolverine in 2013 should have been R-rated as well. A very good Wolverine film, but it needed that bit of edge and a bit of grit, and it has aspects of what Logan has, but I think it's too much studio interference. I think Zack knew that at the time. A Wolverine film coming off the back of the success of the X-Men films would have had a lot of meddling and things like that, but it would have been interesting. So it gets you thinking. A Wolverine film directed by Zack Snyder would be pretty interesting, and especially with Hugh Jackman. James Mangold did an unbelievable job, but in 2009, if Zack got to do a Wolverine film, it could have been very different for everyone's careers, but it all worked out in the end. Batman vs Superman came, Man of Steel, Watchmen, we got those films from Zack, and that's brilliant. And then Wolverine himself, Hugh Jackman, got the proper send-off that he needed to get for his character. I think he had a good run of films his last few films, Days of Future Past, The Wolverine, and then Logan. So, for me personally, I'm happy the way it turned out, but it would have been really interesting to see an Elseworld type Zack Snyder do a Wolverine film, an R-rated Wolverine film. That would have been insane. I think it would have been as good as maybe Logan, but it's hard to know how things would have worked out in the end. We don't know. But in the end, I'm happy the way things went. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think you would have been interested in seeing a Zack Snyder Wolverine film? We'll probably never get that now because Wolverine is a part of the MCU. They haven't introduced the characters of X-Men yet, but they will at some stage because there's money to be made there, of course. X-Men, a big name, which has success in its own films with Fox. But I'd say Fox were kind of kicking themselves a bit, If they went with Zack Snyder from after 300, and if they said, look, we'll give you what you want, you just go and make it, the Fox world of X-Men films could have been very, very different indeed. But that's just the way it is. Now let me know in the comments, guys, what you think of Zack Snyder directing a Wolverine film. And don't forget to subscribe and like and comment, interact with me. Come and follow me on Twitter, MovieBuff100. And let's talk movies. See you next time, guys.